My name is Amanda Tapper, and I am the therapist here at the Relationship Therapy Center that is going to be the facilitator of the Betrayal Group for both men and women. I thought it might be helpful to just give a little bit of background information, or I guess just general information of why I am facilitating this group. Affairs and healing from an affair or a betrayal is something that I actually specialize in and take a special interest in here at the clinic. I've had a lot of experience with couples who have gone through a betrayal and are working at healing from it. And one thing that I have found is that it can be some of the toughest work that a couple is doing, is healing from a betrayal and getting their relationship back on track. It takes a lot of dedication from both partners to be able to show up and really work on their relationship. And so I wanted to be able to offer a space where people could really get that experience and kind of going through that work essentially together in a different way. And really ultimately I think it's also providing a space for people to just talk about it. One thing that I found is that typically people don't talk a lot about the betrayal and the healing process with people in their life. And mainly it's just kind of due to the shame that can come around going through a betrayal. And so ultimately my goal is to provide a space that doesn't have a lot of that stuff in it. So it's a safe space where you can be vulnerable and you can talk about what you're going through and the experience of being able to heal from a betrayal. And so I've worked really hard at making sure that not only my couples feel safe, but also that doing this group, that the clients, the men and the women, feel safe and can be able to kind of just have another modality of therapy in their life where they're getting support from people who essentially are going through or have been going through something similar to what they're experiencing. The group is 6 weeks long, and the way that I have found tends to be the most helpful is meeting for 3 weeks, taking a break, and then meeting for 3 more weeks. And so that's, the days and the times will vary, but overall that's kind of what you can expect. And then from there, every session is a little bit different, just kind of in terms of what comes up. So typically in the first session, I'm just kind of giving a quick little intro about just kind of the group and getting some feedback from the group members about really kind of what they're hoping to get out of the process and what they would like to kind of take away from the group at the end of the 6 weeks. Just to kind of make sure that I'm keeping track of kind of the content of the sessions and making sure that those goals are being accomplished for the group members. Some of the typical topics that have come up in past groups have been emotional regulation has been one, because one of the things that we know about healing from a betrayal is that there's a lot of ups and downs, and so a lot of things can change just from a week-to-week basis. And so where a group member's coming in the first week is typically different than where they might be at the end of the 6 weeks. And so one of the common topics has been really just talking about emotion in general, so kind of all the different emotion that comes up when you're healing from a betrayal. Shame was one of the topics that was really common, just talking about the emotion of shame, kind of through the discovery of the betrayal, and then how you talk about that with other people in your life. But also just the own internal shame of how each individual person is experiencing it. So that's been one of the kind of common topics that I've seen come up. There's also been the topic of just going through like the discovery phase of the affair. Typically what I find is that can be the first time that group members are actually sharing and going through the discovery process since kind of the initial phase, right? So the initial phase of coming into therapy and talking about the discovery phase. Up until that point, there's really no discussion around it, especially if there's certain people in your life that don't necessarily know about it. I find that it's been really helpful for people to talk about that and just kind of go through and process some of the lingering emotion that's coming up through that. One of the other topics that has been common is also boundaries and just how to kind of protect yourself and you protect your relationship through the healing kind of the affair. I would say one of the biggest things too has just kind of been the uncertainty. So the uncertainty through kind of healing from a betrayal and needing to kind of get more certain about what that looks like. Kind of through some of the other group members' experience, but also just kind of through my knowledge in terms of what I've experienced, that has kind of looked like for people. So those are just some of the examples of topics that come up, but it really can vary from group to group in terms of kind of what they feel like is important. I will typically throw out things that I think are important in terms of kind of what to focus on, especially when it comes to like conversations that you're having with the other person about the group or about just the healing and checking in about that. Just even some crisis management in terms of what can come up on a week-to-week basis. So there's certain things that I'll also throw out that I think are important if it doesn't just come up naturally. A common thing that people have said kind of once they've gotten into the group is that they really never saw themselves as being kind of a group person. They never really saw themselves joining a group or coming into a group. And I really understand where they're coming from, because at the end of the day, this is very vulnerable stuff, and you're having to kind of put yourself in a position to be vulnerable almost right away to people that you really don't know anything about. However, those are the people that I love to have in my group, because typically you kind of see that in the first week that fear is there and kind of that fear around vulnerability is there, but by the end of 6 weeks, the feedback that I always get is how helpful that it has been for people to be able to come to a group where they really just feel understood on a very different level than they would with anybody else. Because they are group members that essentially know what it's like, and you don't actually have to use as many words to talk about the pain or the sadness that you're feeling or the devastation that you're feeling as a result of the affair. And so I definitely would encourage you that if you kind of consider yourself to be one of those people that maybe wouldn't necessarily be a group person, to come. I would love to be able to have you be a part of the group and be able to kind of experience that for yourself.
Learn to love better and be better loved. Call us today.